Hello, and welcome to Poems You Need, where two poets who believe in the transformative power of language share the poems that sustain and inspire us. Hi, I'm Melissa Studdard.
And I'm Kelly Russell Agodon.
And today we are sharing poems by Fiona Bennett, a British poet. And the poem that I selected, I was really excited about because it's part of a large collaboration that came out in 2018 of 50 poets in 5 cantos and published over 6 months by the Northern Poetry Library. And it's called The Poetry of or Poem of the North. And it came out to celebrate the library's 50-year anniversary as a tribute to the region and the written culture. So you can see in the poem a lot of references to nature in the region and writing in the region and that kind of thing. And I love also that they invented a new form for this poem, which is called the 821. Kelly, can you guess why it might be called the 821?
The first thing that came to mind was like an area code like the 411, but I don't think that's it.
No, it is the number assigned to English poetry in the Dewey Decimal System.
That's
So,
much smarter.
so great for a library that is soliciting poets to have them write in this form. So the poem is an 11-line poem in 3 stanzas. The first stanza is, can you guess how many lines?
11. No, I failed math. I'm an English major.
That's why we're poets. So yeah, it's an 11-line, 3 stanza poem and 8 lines, 2 lines, and then 1 line, 821. And it utilizes a volta, which we typically think of with being associated with a sonnet. And it creates this sort of interconnection among the stanzas. And it allows the poets in a way to sort of turn and riff off of one another, and it's just really cool. And I really, really love Fiona's section of this poem, which is called Viewpoint on the River Dee, and it's in memory of her father, um, Michael J. Bennett. And I want to say Fiona has really one of the most beautiful reading voices I've ever heard. So I'm going to do my best to read the poem half as well as she might have read it herself. So Viewpoint on the River Dee by Fiona Bennett. I come when the edge of darkness returns you to me. The water is swollen above the weir before it breaks into a gush of white foam. The heron stands poised, fixing the moment. I remember your hands, the tension in your forearms, forcing them steady as you held them up in a square for the view you never came back to paint. I look into your scene, the arc of the bridge, lampposts, the curved row of houses lining the hill, winter trees, all reveal themselves to me now as a complex web of thin black lines, like an X-ray held to the light. The challenge of perspective that ruled your life.
Wow. That is a beautiful elegy that really uses place to ground it, but to also share so much about the father, the view you never came back to paint. Like what a moment in the poem. Yeah, there's so much beauty in here and how we're seeing the scene through her eyes. It would be a great prompt for a poet to do like something that brings you back to the past or another person, a place that does that.
Yeah, totally. And I think I mean, this poem is so much about memory and the way memory functions, we've got the heron fixing the moment, we've got the father fixing the moment, and then he never gets to paint it, and she comes back and like turns it into art, which he didn't do or wasn't able to do. So it's just this really, really beautiful, tender kind of memory that has so many different facets to it. It's beautiful. It makes me think about what we hold on to, what makes us hold on to something. So yeah.
She has the a set in the season of winter, which is also like a season of kind of loss, like if you're looking at a life. And the image of the trees, you can just see the branches because all the leaves are off, as a complex web of thin black lines, like an X-ray held to the light. I thought, what such an inventive way of looking at trees. I love it when poets take something we've seen, every winter in here. I live in Seattle of my life. I've seen those trees, and now I'll have this new perspective on them.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And it also gives you that feeling of just the X-ray, the fact that she's comparing it to an X-ray, hints that there was an illness with her father without her ever coming out and saying it. And that's such an amazing thing that poets can do, like this knowing when to be precise and go into great detail and when to leave space, and to just sort of hint at something. And she does it so beautifully in this poem.
She does, and it's interesting because of the term winter trees. That's gonna it made me think of Emily Dickinson, which is like the segue to my poem, which is about Emily Dickinson. Well, not about her, but about something she wore. It's called Emily Dickinson's Corset and Her White Gown. Vessel of cloth and bone, turned in on itself, mouth wide open, cradle to carry her birth cry, to rock her dreams, ribbed wing narrowed, focused to a point, breath as microscope, lotus hands to catch butterfly, beetle, snail, small dead things, worn in the day, laid down at night, when the white dress let loose the strings and unbound, spectra free, murmuring she empties her specimens, ink to the page.
Wow. I am so glad you chose that. That is just a beautiful poem. And it really shows off the many things that Fiona can do as a poet. And I think can't remember if you mentioned this with the previous poem, having some sort of Dickinsonian elements. So you can feel that Dickinsonian style, but then also the subject matter too. And then just I mean, I look through here and all the choices that she made, like putting the word her in the title, Emily Dickinson's Corset and Her White Gown. Just that word makes it a little strange in a way that Emily Dickinson is strange, in a way that someone else might not say that. They might just say Emily Dickinson's Corset and White Gown, or Corset and Gown. And then I love just the sound of small dead things. I mean, it's like, it's like bam, 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 it makes you feel it. It punches. So,
Yeah, and it was right after the butterfly, beetle, snail. And then we come back to that. So I'm so intrigued by this ending, which is the idea of this like laying down, the clothing at night. And I just had this image of like Emily being so tight in her corset and being able to let loose with the white gown. And then she brings back this ending with murmuring she empties her specimens. And I thought, oh my gosh, that could have been the butterfly, beetle, and snail. And then ink to the page, that idea of, Emily Dickinson completely releasing and then being able to write.
You are so right. It's almost like three different poems happening in one, because there's this overlap of the specimens, the writing, and the self and the world as like three things that are happening. And if you look at the stanzas, which are in 3 lines, it kind of feels like the corresponding line in each stanza, so like the first line in each stanza relates and tells one story. The second line in each stanza tells another, and same with the third. And it's just kind of amazing how she accomplished that and just created. I mean, she mentions specter free. There's this feeling of like the spirit of these things intermingling. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, and the listeners can't see this, but it has no punctuation, which offers another way that you can read this, because it, like, the opening stanza has mouth wide open, but it could be mouth wide open cradle to carry her birth cry. Are you carrying her birth cry? Are you carrying her birth? And just not having that, and like that's a choice when a poet decides not to have punctuation, but it can really open up the poem to the reader in so many different ways, because now it's like a choose your own adventure poem. Like, how am I going to read these words together in these images?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the poem gives so many different possibilities for all these reasons. The lack of punctuation, the corresponding lines, and then you mentioned her becoming like unbound at the end of the poem, and it's like there are two Emilys in this poem. So those are like other readings, because you've got the Emily who she is during the day, and then you've got the Emily Dickinson who she is at night, who's free, and this poet who we all love. So
Right. Daytime Dickinson. That's my favorite reality show.
Kelli, you're going to write that poem.
Yeah, I have to write a Daytime Dickinson poem. I love that. They're a
Wow.
really good pairing because they really show just how differently she writes. And I love that we are bringing a British poet to our audience here. That's really meaningful to me.
I love that too. And she's really quite a person on the poetry scene in England. So it's so
Right.
nice to sort of help her across the pond, as they say.
Say, well, thank you. Beautiful reading.
No, thank you too.
All right. Thank you for celebrating poetry with us today. Information about the poet and works featured can be found on the episode page. And if you enjoyed today's reading, please press the like button and subscribe so not to miss another poem. You can also share the episode with a friend, and we hope you do. Until next time, we wish you beauty, inspiration, and very meaningful days. May you always have the poems you need.